Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Toad's Wild Ride Gems of War event in which the ballet is added to the game, so let's get into that. As far as this troop, it is an epic, so it does come in with the cheapest possible arcanes you can get at only 200 glory each, so if you've been needing brown-blue trait stones for whatever reason, good time to go and stock up on them. Earlier on in the game, you want to use it for something like a Forest Guardian as a good frontline tank and mana generator. Works really good with Titan as well. Later on in the game, you'd want to put it into things like Corvash for the best stunner, as well as just any mythics that end up requiring it. As far as the troop itself, it is super ridiculously annoying, but simultaneously never going to be used. It's very similar to that of, well, I guess not necessarily Dragon's Eye. Dragon's Eye is actually good, but it's one of those kind of like troll troops that realistically you would basically never use, but it is still super annoying. It does split damage to all enemies, just scattering it around, and then it jumbles every single enemy on the opposing team. So this can be somewhat good against things like skull spam teams. However, very few teams in the current meta these days really get interrupted by the team being completely shifted like that, so there isn't really any instances you would bring it out. There's also not any specific team that you could use it in at any given time, simply because this is the kind of troop that you would use and put into your team as a support troop whenever you specifically need to do that against the enemy's team. It's more so a hard counter to skull spam teams and things that need to be specifically in a certain order in order to function, and you would only bring it out in those instances and would never bring it out in any other instance. Also, please do not use this on defend. It is already annoying enough with Dragon's Eye and everything. We do not need that there too. It'll probably be pretty easy to kill because it does basically 0 damage, but it'll still be annoying. Anyways, it's 11 mana cost, which isn't too bad for that. There are things that could do movement for cheaper, like Kofeshi for only 7, and a few hero weapons that can start with half mana, which are technically cheaper since you cannot start with half mana, since there's currently no mana start for Daemons at the moment. But yeah, there's even cheaper options than what he does. But he is currently the only thing that could do it to the entire enemy team, instead of just one specific target like most others do. Other than that, he does have a Water Link, which is feed into himself or some other troop. So overall, I would not really advise using this troop for the most part. Don't set it on defend. If you got anything from that, don't set it on defend. Anyways, if you use it in PvP this week or Explore, which PvP wouldn't bother with, Explore possibly just for the free souls, but you end up getting 40 extra souls per battle. And other than that, all we have to do is kill a bunch of things in PvP, which should be pretty straightforward. Just play PvP a bunch, and you'll just get a bunch of kills, and you'll just be able to rack up all of the free gems that you can get this week, as well as gem keys. Easiest way to do this is go to PvP, go under challenges, casual PvP, and just keep repicking until you have super easy battles, and just run basically your Explore team or whatever normal PvP team you want to run that just quickly kills anything here, and you can quickly get super easy battles that die in like one shot or a few shots, and just keep repeating those until you get all the kills you need. It doesn't matter if you're fighting a 3-trophy battle or constantly repicking casual PvP for a 1-trophy. Every kill still counts as a kill towards that event, so you might as well take the easier ones if you want to get it done a little bit quicker. So, as far as event keys this week, they are actually somewhat good. The main reason being is that this week's event is for Darkstone, and there is a hero class coming very soon for Darkstone. This is very relevant for Darkstone because once it gets a hero class, it shoots all the way up from where it's currently at right now, which is like 8 stars, all the way to about 14 stars. So the main reason you'd want to throw event keys is not actually for any single troop, pretty much. It is mainly just for the, the Possessed King. The Possessed King will be required in order to get Darkstone to level 10 plus in about a month or so when the next hero class will be coming out, which will be for Darkstone most likely. So yes, you will be needing this in about 1 month. He might be in Soulforge in that time. He could be from about a month to 2. But right now you do have the ability to obtain him within event keys. So if you do still need him and you're close to getting 10-star Darkstone, as in you're basically at 8 stars right now, then you should probably consider getting him, or at least attempting to get him, mainly because he will be required. He's not really that good of a troop. Well, I shouldn't say that. He's mainly used for delves, because he has his multi-transform, and he also has a pretty decent amount of mana accumulation. He's used very similarly to Queen Aurora, except that it can also work with skull spam teams, since this also works when you take extra turn skulls instead of just mana-related ones. But yes, you do want to get him, even if you don't plan on using him, simply to get that precious +1 magic. It'll be the first kingdom in about a month to gain +1 magic. And if you want to get that off of 10 stars, it will require having Possessed King. But other than that, there's pretty much nothing else viable in the drop table other than maybe Scion. But you don't really need Scion for the most part, mainly Possessed King. Anyways, of course, we have Tower of Doom this week. Unfortunately, it is repeating brown. We still haven't gotten 2 colors. I believe they were... I forget what they are off the top of my head now. I think they were green and yellow. But whatever it was, we are missing 2 colors, and for whatever reason, they just repeated on brown before doing those. But that does mean we already have some experience doing browns. However, we did get multiple different options that do work pretty well in browns. I'll be going over a few teams in a moment. But the main 2 noteworthy things that came within that time is we have gotten High King Iron Gut in that time, which is an insanely good Devour option. It doesn't work on the Doom itself, but it'll work on most other things. And also the new hero class that just came out last Friday, a few days ago. That hero class is pretty good in brown-oriented teams and is the tankiest troop in the game for you putting in first slot, which makes it just good in Dooms in general, but it also has Mana Link off its second to last trait, so it has even more benefit to browns. Anyways, as far as the weapon this week, it is a relatively bad one. Where'd it go? Where did it go? Drop, weapon. So, as far as the weapon, it just basically acts as the one that we got the previous time, which makes me think that all of the second round weapons are basically going to be the same exact way as that. It just gives a bunch of life to all your allies, +2 per tempering level, which is whatever the upgrade is. So if you have it at +4, it'll then do 8, whatever you have at level 2. It then gives 5 mana to all allies, and if there's a Doom on the opposing team, that then becomes 9 total mana. And then it gives 2 magic to all allies for each brown on the opposing team, for of course a maximum of 8 if there are 4 browns on the opposing team. So yeah, nothing really too good. I would highly advise... Well, I shouldn't say not get it, but we still don't know if the rotation for Doom weapons are going to be 2 different ones, or 3, or if they're just going to keep going with it. Currently, as you can see, it does look like they're going to be doing a completely different weapon every single time now, so all of the other events are going to be getting at least 1 other for each of their colors. That means there's at least 2 Doom weapons in play. We still don't know if there's going to be a 3rd rotation of them, as in it's just going to keep being a new Doom weapon every single time, which hopefully it will not be. But there is still a chance that that might be the case, so if you are doing for 100% completion, you probably want to get this weapon. However, if you're doing it from, is this weapon good? The answer is no, this weapon is pretty bad. But collection purposes, you probably want to pick it up. And most guilds would probably go that high anyways in order to try to get all of the battles done. But as far as the game mode itself, I've explained it several times already, but I do want to just go over it again real quick. Basically, you should just communicate with your guild and essentially tell every single room and basically have some kind of system in place to tell your guild what you need to do. You need to be looking for the unlock scroll in every single room. Additional runs that you want to find in every single room are the Scroll of Power, which is large P, which basically gives +1 to each of your stats within the guild here. So if you go over to the page right over here over top of guild, you can see we have a bunch of stats here. It'll add +1 to this lower number, not the top number, every single time you get a power to all 4 of them. There's also scrolls that do +1 to each of them individually, but the power one does it to all 4 at once, making it a lot more viable than many of the other scrolls. Other than that, you want to try finding a luck scroll that counts as 2 free Doom kills. Apparently, I don't think we found one yet. But those are the absolute best rooms to be able to find, as they... we have one right there. As those basically just count as free wins of killing the Doom all the way on the end of each floor. There's also the haste scrolls. This basically gives you 1 sigil, which technically doesn't give you any profit, since every single battle you do within a Tower of Doom does count. It does end up using 1 sigil. However, the reason why these are good to go for is because that one battle could have a Valraven on it. And if you get a Valraven, then you just profited 2 sigils from that battle without actually losing one. And in no case, unless you actually lose the battle, would you actually lose a sigil. So they're normally worth going for just to try to get the Valraven. And yes, you basically just want to go through the delves, communicate with your guilds what all of the proper beneficial rooms are. You can mark some other ones if you truly wanted to as well, depending on what you actually want to get. But you mainly just want to focus on power, heroism, which ends up killing the floor out with the heroism scroll for the final thing, haste so that you can get more sigils, and the power just for all the stats, and that's about it. But as far as teams for all of it, to go over that right now. So we did go over teams on the last time when we had this game mode, but I do want to go over a few different ones this time around, as we do have more options. The first one is one that I did for most of the beginning of last time, so I will re-show it again, and that is Wrath Glaceon the blue Doom Blade if you have it, and King Bloodhammer. You could try replacing this with Anu Scepter or something else as well, or any other blue weapon, even that mana draining one with 14 mana cost. But for the most part, if you do have the Doom Blade, would work out best. Essentially, this team is 4 Doomskull creating troops, or 3 Doomskull, 1 Wrath, which technically is like Doomskulls because every single time he ends up taking skulls, it does explosions, which is basically what Doomskulls already are, even though his ability itself are skulls. But essentially, it's a 4-time skull spam team, and you just keep skull spamming and obliterating the enemy team before they can do anything to you. And this can work pretty effectively up to about 15 floor, though you could probably go even further than that if you had higher stats. I believe we ended up doing the entire event almost last time with that. Now we do have Lord King Irongut. This is probably more the lines of what I would be using later on, and that is either Sentinel or Titan. Using Yasmin's Pride. If you do not have Yasmin's Pride, you can use Dragon's Eye or Mountain Crusher here. Either or will end up working. Probably Mountain Crusher just because you'd want the mana. High King Irongut here will be able to devour anything that can be devoured. If you truly had to, you could go put Dragon's Eye there in order to transform things so that you can devour them if they have multiple things that are immune, though to keep in mind that the Doom is immune to both transform and devour, but still really good. One of the reasons why it's in second slot instead of third, like it normally gets ran in most teams, is mainly because this is not like Delves, where you have to keep your entire team alive. In this game mode in Tower of Doom, you are allowed to just kill out your first slot, let it die out, and then use the high attack that you'll then have on your Iron Gut to basically just one-shot everything or two-shot everything. So it's more beneficial to have it in second, just so that you can scrap away your first slot when the time comes, and then just go killing everything with a High King Iron Gut. Other than that, Ketris is here mainly for his damage boost ratio that he gets off of all of his stats, and to clean up anything else that you might not be able to get, either from High King Iron Gut or just because you want to destroy their armor and then follow up with a Ketris. And here we just have Scorpius, mainly as a support troop. He's not really that needed here, but he's basically just giving +1 to all stats per turn on every Brown, which is, of course, our entire team. And this is beneficial as it helps everything out. It helps our first slot not die. It helps King Iron Gut get his Devour, since it'll increase his attack every turn. And it helps Ketris with literally everything, since his boost ratio is based on all of his stats. So very nice right there for a nice little bonus on him. As far as that, as far as getting a cheap team in there, if you have absolutely nothing to use, here's a team that just uses a hero weapon with ultra rare and below. Pretty much everyone can afford this team. So if you needed something super cheap to run in Tower of Doom, this is probably what you want to do. Manged weapon, if you don't currently have this, you need to level your hero up a little bit and put all of your masteries when you level into brown and red. You can get this by level 100 or so probably even earlier than that. So you probably already have this by now, and if you don't, it should only take, you'll definitely be able to grind for it within this week and then start using it for this game mode. But basically, you just want to use this with the new hero classes this came out with however far you have it leveled, ideally at least 40 though, just so you can gain the barrier. You can also use it with Titan if you don't have it leveled up high enough, though it'd probably be better off doing it with this. The Sentinel if you do have it. But basically, you just destroy their armor, you gain all their attack whenever you do that, and then you just have an absurd amount of attack. Since regardless of what their armor is, they'll just keep gaining more and more armor the deeper you go, and you'll just keep getting higher attack that'll skill up with them. All you have to do is just keep spamming barrier so you don't die. And this hero class has barrier at the start of battle, barrier every single time it takes a brown, and 25% chance to barrier an ally every single turn. On top of all that, you also have 40% score reduction, so even when they starting to kill your hero, or in other cases where they would have without score reduction, you would actually be able to survive that 40% reduction to at least survive one more hit. Pretty important when they could start one-shotting you to be able to avoid being one-shot. Cockatrice here is for the Entangle and Mana Drain. You cannot do this to the Doom, though you can do it to most troops. This will also end up creating a lot of brown, which is very beneficial because it's a brown that creates brown. There are a few that do this, so Cockatrice is the absolute most viable one. But yeah, it's mainly used for its Entangle into Mana Drain. The brown is just an extra on top of that. It also has a +1 extra yellow, which makes it easier to get mana. We are using 2 of the exact same color, but that's mainly because Dragonian Monk is insanely good at not dying. Not only does it have half mana start if you do end up getting it traded, it has a X-shaped destroy, which is great board control and great mana generation. But the main concept of it is that it gives barrier basically to your entire team. It gives 1 barrier per yellow that you destroy with this troop, and obviously if you destroy 4 yellows, it will barrier your entire team. Do keep in mind though, it will not automatically barrier things that are not barriered. So for example, if you have 1 troop barriered and then you destroy 3 yellows, that is not a guaranteed chance that it will barrier your entire team, because there is a chance it'll re-barrier the one that already has barrier, so do be mindful of that. But if you do get 4 yellows, it'll guarantee barrier your entire team every time. And other than that, we just have Clockwork Sphinx here, just as a nice support troop for even more board control. It ends up destroying whatever gems it ends up targeting, which means you have to accumulate the mana. So if you target on, let's say, brown, you would accumulate all that mana. You'd most likely want to use it on red or purple, though. as far as what you would target. And it just ends up giving a lot of armor to your team, which will basically just help you survive. And in the case of using this hero class, it also gives you 20% extra skull damage as an option. If we didn't have it set to EXP, we can go set it to that right there. And 20% of our armor does end up becoming extra skull damage. So that's basically just a little bit of an attack buff on top of our really large attack buff that we already have off of Mang. So that's something really cheap that you can end up running for Tower of Doom. Do keep in mind, you do probably want to upgrade from this if you do have better options, but if you had absolutely nothing to use, that could get you at least to about floor 10, 15 or so, without too much of an issue, just simply by using barrier spam over and over again, trying to make sure your team never dies, since it protects against one whole instant of damage. Anyways, other than that, as far as weekly events that we have going on this week, we have the faction event this Tuesday for Primal Rift. We have the cute little snow bunny on Wednesday, which is Blue Mastery. Thursday, we have Death Knight, which is a okay hero class. It's not really one that needs to be upgraded that far, though getting it to level 70 could be beneficial because it does have that one explosion thing similar to how Titan has, where every single time you extra turn, it explodes a yellow. But for the most part, this hero class isn't really that relevant. And this Friday, we are getting an interesting new mythic for Donna. It's going to be a mech, and it's a brown, red, green mech. Most noteworthy in that is using green, since most mechs don't actually use green, so it's filling a nice gap there. And it basically has 50% spell reduction, a triple hit true damage shot that's relatively random, because not only is its damage random, but also the targets are random. And it has a really nice armor gain and a high amount of damage based on its armor. I believe at 50% of its armor as skull damage. So it's going to be an okay troop. It has a little bit of a conflict of interest in that it has no skull mitigation or barrier, yet it's dependent on its armor, so it could very, very easily lose all that armor. For the most part, it feels like it's going to be a second slot shot. It's going to be a second slot true damaging troop, and it's mainly just going to be used in true damage compositions, not so much with mechs. Though, however, you might want to preemptively consider upgrading mech in this class a little bit if you don't already have it upgraded some, or at least get it traded, because if you do end up getting that mythic, it will be pretty good with mech hero class, especially since you could use various true damage hero weapons with the mech to synergize with it. But it's going to be relatively random, not sure how viable it's really going to be, but it does seem like an interesting little addition to true damage. Other than that, let's go over Soulforge. So, Soulforge this week, we have Divinish Bala. As far as the legends are concerned, the only legend that's actually viable this week. You'd probably want to get this simply because Quillen came in pretty recently, a couple weeks ago, and if you don't already have that combo, Quillen into Divinish Bala fully traded is a very, very solid combo, and is also the best way to get Bless spam currently in the game, which is also getting buffed next patch, so even more of a reason. So you'd probably want to get this if you don't currently have it, because it's going to be like another several months before Divinish Bala is back in the drop table. She'll probably be available through event keys again before she's back in the drop table, so she's probably one of them I would say to consider getting. More so an end game troop though than a early game or mid game. She's mainly used with a lot of the mythics that are divine within the game. She's also, the only thing that's really low rarity is basically what I just mentioned, Quillen synergizing with it, but still very solid combination nonetheless. Other than that, none of the mythics are really worth crafting. However, there are multiple mythics that are required for kingdom upgrades. Wild Queen, Jotnar, and Guard's Avatar are all associated with a kingdom upgrade, with Guard's Avatar probably being the most noteworthy, since Wayhelm can currently reach 14 stars and would be the easiest of those three to actually get upgraded if you are more towards mid-game. So you might want to consider one of those. However, all three of them are pretty lackluster mythics, so you don't really need to go out of your way for it unless you already have most of the core mythics within the game. And anyways, that is pretty much everything, as there's not much to show with the new troop that ended up coming in, because please do not use them on defense. But anyways, guys, we'll be running Tower of Doom later tonight, as well as all throughout this week until we end up finishing it. So if you actually want to see a bunch of gameplay of it, we'll be doing that live here on YouTube every single night at around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Oh, one last thing before we go. And I forgot to say it last time, and I almost forgot to say it this time. There was one nerf last week that I'm pretty sure most people didn't even notice, and I completely forgot to mention it last week, and I do want to mention it now because I know more people tend to watch this video than any other video I do all week. So let me go mention it real quick. They did nerf one thing on several hero classes. So if we go under any hero class right here, and let's go to, let's say, Archer. So underneath the Cunning tree, they did a nerf to the backup trait. This used to be a 50% chance to summon a bandit. It has now been reduced to a 35%. This is a much needed change because not only was that already the highest percent chance summon on any hero, it was the one that occurred the most because it occurs any single time that an ally dies, and that ally can include the bandit that it just resummoned, so you basically just got infinite resummoning bandits over and over and over again. That could still happen, it's still 35%, that's still like a 1 in 3 chance, but now it has been reduced by that 15%, so it's going to happen a lot less often. It's still an insanely good trait to have set, but it is now a lot less annoying than it was before, so not as needed to go and stun it to make sure it doesn't go crazy. It will just go, it will basically maintain itself now. You're most likely not going to see more than it triggering about 2-3 times within a battle for the most part, whereas before it could trigger like 10 times over that 50% it felt like, or even more. But yes, it's basically a lot less annoying now is essentially what they did with it. Not really much of a nerf because it was kind of needed just due to how annoying it was just overall in constantly making battles go on forever needlessly. Anyways, guys, that'll wrap it up for this video. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone!